Did you know that there are over 3 million, yes, 3 million licensed real estate agents in the United States? 421,000 of those are in California, and over 20,000 of those are right here in San Diego. So with so many options, how do you select the right one? And more importantly, how do you avoid making the mistake of selecting the wrong agent, especially if you're selling your home? So today I'm going to break down the biggest mistakes that sellers make, what to look for in an agent, and how to ensure that you're working with a true professional. Okay, so probably the first and most common mistake that sellers make is hiring somebody based on likability, family connection, or maybe on the pressure exerted by that person. And so first off, likability. We all like to like people, right? And we all want to work with somebody that we like, which obviously is important. But we have to ask ourselves, is that person qualified? Because just because a person has a real estate license doesn't make them qualified to sell your house. And so we're going to see here in a little bit the questions that you should ask to make sure that they are actually qualified and can get you across the finish line and put the most money in your pocket, which for most people is the goal, right? And then the second thing is family connections, and that still applies here too. And your family connection may be a great realtor, and they may be the best choice, but it bears research anyways. You need to make sure that that person is in fact qualified to sell your home and is the best person to do the job and has a relationship with you that's not going to be harmed by a huge financial transaction, especially if that transaction goes south. Those relationships are important, and so therefore it's probably not always the best choice to have a family member in that role. And then lastly would be somebody who works that neighborhood, that maybe knocks on your door occasionally and says they're the local expert in your neighborhood, and you've met them at garage sales maybe they've done, and they're always passing out flyers and doing that kind of thing. And they again may be the right person for selling your home, but we want to make sure that that person is qualified and somebody who sells enough homes to where they're the right person for the job. Because I think in a lot of instances, we want somebody that can market to a wider area rather than just the neighborhood that they live in, which is pretty common in the industry. So make sure that you do enough research. The research that I'm talking about is making sure to interview at least 3 agents before you select the one that's for you. Then there's another caveat that we want to talk about in selecting the agent based on home price. So if you are interviewing 3 agents, likely they're going to do 3 comparative market analysis, and they're going to present what they feel that your home should sell for. Now, a lot of times an agent will do what we call buying a listing, and I've talked about this before. Well, what they'll do is they'll intentionally put the value of your home higher than market value and say that, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but I can get that value for you. I can get you whatever it is. And sometimes it can be $50,000, $100,000 over market value. And they'll swear to you that their marketing will get you that higher number. Be very careful of that, because the market is the market, and no one agent can command a price over market value. The smart money places your home value at market value or even slightly below market value, which will cause multiple offers and in often case raise the sale price above market value. But if you start high thinking that all you can do is go down, the problem is the market ends up perceiving that there's an issue with the home because it's been on the market too long. And a lot of times the ultimate sale price will be much lower than if you started at actual market value. That's something you really want to consider here. So say you decide to go ahead and interview 3 agents. So what are you looking for outside of likability? So the first thing would be experience. And the reason for this is real estate schools do not teach you how to sell a home. They actually teach you how to pass the test. So just because you have a real estate license doesn't make you qualified to sell a home. So that takes maybe 3 to 5 years at least of active experience actually selling homes. And during that time, you have to have sold some. And the reason I say that is, according to the National Association of Realtors, 50% of realtors don't sell any homes any given year. And 10% of the agents that are licensed actually do 90% of the actual sales. So it's entirely possible that the person that you're talking to and maybe allowing to list your home hasn't sold any. And I don't think that makes them qualified. So it's important to understand the marketing that they're doing and a little bit at least about their sales history. So where do you find that? Well, you can find it very easily at Google. So you maybe Google the search terms, in my case, James Renfro Real Estate San Diego. And the page that comes up should be absolutely filled with that person's marketing, if not page 2 as well. And so you should see that person's website, that person's agency's website. You should see a Zillow profile, a Realtor.com profile, and at least probably half a dozen other profiles of different places that they're doing marketing. And you should do some research in those websites and see, have they sold any homes? How long is their career span? Those are important questions to answer in your own mind so you understand that they have some experience walking through the door. And why is this important? Well, this person needs to provide leadership to help you get your home ready for sale, then do the marketing that's necessary to get the home on the multiple listing service, and then they need to be able to negotiate the sale, and then they need to be able to negotiate anything that crops up during escrow, like request for repairs, and then they need to be able to help you get across the finish line. And in that process is also helping you select the right buyer. There's a lot to unpack there. And so you want to make sure that, this is an important decision. Not all real estate licensees are equal. So next is the marketing and presentation. And so you want that person to be able to give you the best possible marketing. And to do so, they should be using a professional photographer. They should never be taking their own photos. They should have a professional videographer. They should be knowledgeable in marketing on social media, especially YouTube. They should have a stager and be helping you during that preparatory process. These are all things that they should be laying out for you as part of the interview process and telling you exactly what they're going to do from day one all the way through close of escrow, how they get the job done. And then, of course, negotiation skills are very important. You want somebody for that experience, that has experience, in negotiation, because that is a big thing. If you have somebody who's just so agreeable and okay with everything that you say, you may want to take pause and see if they're able to negotiate. Lastly, professionalism and communication. Obviously, this is important. How do they present themselves? How are they going to present themselves to the world? And are they able to communicate very easily? Because they're going to have to communicate with other agents, other buyers, escrow, and those things. And you want them to be able to articulate conversations without an issue. So that's a good start. Okay, so do you want to hire an agent or a broker? So first you have to understand what the terms mean. So Agent is the title they give you when you pass your real estate exam. And you may be an agent for the rest of your career, and there's totally nothing wrong with that, perfectly fine. As a broker, brokers have to get additional schooling and pass an additional exam in order to have the title of broker. The difference being that a broker can have agents work for that person. And so what you may want to consider when you're interviewing, if you're interviewing a broker, is ask that person, are you going to handle my sale personally, or are you having other agents do it for you? Because you may want to understand that before you enter into a contract. If they're handling it personally, then great. But if they're handling it with one of their underlings and just overseeing it, are you getting the same level of service? And that's something that you need to know. And other than that, like I said, an agent may be perfectly fine. I personally am a broker associate, but everything to do with a listing is handled through me personally. I don't have my junior agents handle any of that type of stuff. So something to think about. Okay, so this conversation about commissions, that's obviously important. And so for a seller, it's important to understand that commissions are negotiable, period. There's no industry standard. Nobody sets a fixed commission rate, except for maybe that particular agent. They may feel strongly or may not be willing to go down at all, or maybe not very much on the commission that they charge. And typically that's going to be because they're going to make an investment in marketing your property, right? That photographer, the videographer, all those pieces and parts to selling your home is a significant investment for most realtors, as opposed to the person who comes over and is planning on using their iPhone as their photographer. That person may decide there's going to be more leeway in their commission because they're not going to invest as heavily. But we have to ask ourselves, is that going to be the best person to represent me? Because as we know, there's like 95% of all homes are first found on the internet. And so if we're not putting our best foot forward through the best possible images, then maybe that person isn't going to get us the highest sale price. And so all of this we need to think about. And then the next part of that conversation is, how does the agent handle this conversation? So for instance, if their commission was a certain rate and they dropped $10,000 off of that without even me asking for it, or they did it just very easily. They were willing to drop $15,000 off of their commission in order to get me to sign right away. I have to ask myself in that case, is that the agent who's also, if they're not willing to fight for their own commission, how hard are they going to fight for my sale price, right? Are they really going to fight for it, or are they just going to roll over and accept whatever somebody offers? And the same goes when there's terms that need to be, negotiated for. Are they just going to roll over when the buyer asks for $20,000 worth of repairs? So I want somebody who's going to negotiate hard for their commission, because I believe that that person is also going to negotiate hard for me. But you need to make that choice. Okay, so what about verifying that your agent is actually an agent, verifying their credentials, or making sure your broker is actually a broker? Every state, to my knowledge, has a state Department of Real Estate. And so in our case, it's California Department of Real Estate. You can Google that, and there's a consumer link that'll take you right to a page that says, enter in the agent's license number and or their name, and it will take you to their license. And from there, you can determine when they were first licensed, if they're currently licensed, if there's ever been any disciplinary action against them. And these are obviously all factors that you want to understand when you're finding somebody to represent you. And then the second thing that you want to make sure is to ask the potential agent for a copy of their E&O insurance. This is called errors and omissions insurance. It's super important. Not all agents have it. Most of the larger agencies have it, but not all, again. So we want to make sure that they have it. What this covers is legal claims like misrepresentation, like any error that might be made, like any dispute, contract dispute, that type of thing. You want to make sure the agent has coverage for that. Very, very important, obviously. What about red flags? What don't you want? And so I think the very first thing is high pressure tactics. And so with some agents, they have a philosophy, it's called the ABCs of selling, and it's always be closing. And they are going to sit there and say, well, I want to get your signature today, and what's it going to take to do that? Or I'm not leaving until I get your signature, or I want to go through the whole thing so you understand and make sure that you get this signed today. Or I'll have you sign it today and then you can call me in 24 hours kind of thing, and I won't hold you to it. There are all kinds of tactics that go along with that. And you just really want to stay away from it, because that type of attitude is also used with potential buyers and potential buyer agents. And people just really don't like to be sold, right? So I know for myself, if I go to a department store, and even if I am looking for clothing, if an agent, or excuse me, a salesperson comes and asks me, do I need some help? I'm like, oh no, I can do it myself. Because I don't like to be sold. And so I'm like most people I know, because I see people do that stuff all the time, because it's not in people's nature to want to be sold like that. And so an agent like that's going to push away more buyers than they're going to attract. So I think it's something that you really ought to stay away from. And the next part is a lack of transparency or vague answers. And so in the description below, I have a link to a blog, and you can go there and read all the questions that you would ask these, interview questions. And if they answer vaguely or they don't know the answers, that'd be a red flag too, because any agent should really be able to articulate any one of those questions without problem. And if they can't, or they're vague, I would say move on. And then lastly, poor marketing quality. Look at their previous listings. What do they look like? Do they look fantastic, or are they kind of marginal? Because whatever they did on those listings, they're probably going to do on yours. And so we want to make sure that their marketing is consistent. And then I guess, one more thing. That E&O insurance, I can't express how important that is. Make sure that you have a copy of their E&O policy, and that way you can be assured that there won't be any issues down the road. Choosing the right real estate agent can mean the difference between a smooth, profitable sale and a stressful, costly mistake. So do your homework, ask the right questions, and never settle for less than top-tier service. If you want a list of those must-ask questions, check the link below. There's a link there to my blog, and I've laid out everything there that you need. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and share it with anybody you know who's thinking about selling their home. Hey, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.